this piece goes way back for me, but also way back centuries. It's a traditional Irish melody. It's now known as Down by the Salley Gardens. And I first heard it when I was about 20, playing at the Renaissance Fair in Northern California here in about 1975 or 6 or somewhere around in there. Ran into a harpist who became a good friend my whole life, Martha Blackmen, and she introduced me to a lot of very cool Irish stuff. And this is just one of the songs I remember that we played that I was always fascinated by. Doing a little bit of research on it, found out all kinds of really neat things about it, and there are lyrics to it that are just tear-jerking. It's a poem by Yeats from the 1890s or so that was first published there. Now I want to talk a little bit about the lesson and some of the decisions I made in it, and that is the biggest one is this is played with all kinds of different harmonies or different chords, different chord progressions, and so my final arrangement, I still play it differently every time, but I figured I wanted to at least have something that you could work with, is based on a lot of different ones and just the way I like it now. But what we're going to do is just talk about combining the melody and the chord progression into a solo. And the melody, so on the page that I have of tab, on the second page, I have just the melody, and this is a really important thing. You want to have this melody really clear in your head, and then the accompaniment that I've chosen to do with this is mostly based on, there's a melody note on pretty much the first beat of every measure, and usually it's a quarter note. And so that opens up the door for an accompaniment based on playing the chord on the first beat and bringing in a second bass note or a harmony note, it may not be a bass note, on the and there, and then continuing with the melody. So what I like to do in many songs, but this has turned into a great example, and I've had really a lot of fun working on it, is pick out the melody, play the bass notes, add some harmony notes, and then add some filler notes when there are spots where there are holes in the melody. And we'll talk about that in there as to the approach of when you play an extra note, how do you make sure it doesn't step on the melody? So what you heard me play right there a minute ago you should be able to walk away humming that melody, and even though I played some notes that weren't part of the melody, they were way in the background. So that's what we're going to work on here, and we'll talk about kind of customizing it and working on it yourself too. So coming up, a lesson on Down by the Salley Gardens. There we have the melody the way I hear it and the way we're going to address it in this lesson. So I really want you to play that or listen to it a lot so that you have that just glued in your head. You could even sing the lyrics. I should put a page up that has those lyrics, but they're easy to find. And listen to a few other vocal versions. Now, one of the things that's typical in Irish singing is a lot of ornamentation, and right there you heard zero. So we're gonna kind of like leave that outside of the scope of this lesson right now. But a lot of times you would hear things like this. Some of the little ornaments you hear like on bagpipes, but also heavily stylized singing that you hear by Irish singers, particularly if they're singing a cappella. This tune could be harmonized really simply with, at least in the first line, that happens 3 times, simply 1, 4, and 5. Messed up the melody. But what we had, I'm in A. 1, 5, 4, 1, 4, 5, 1. Now, when we get into the third line, we want a little variety. We've got to hear something else. The melody note is an A, and so the easiest thing to do here is bring in the relative minor chord, F sharp minor. and then the another minor chord, chord 3. So that's how I would normally start that line. The simplest version would be a measure of F sharp minor and a measure of C sharp minor, and then the second half of that line, 4 doo 5 doo 1. There's that resolution that I talked about that I feel comes too early in the song. So in my arrangement, we're not going to 1 there. We're going to talk about, well, we're going to do something else. And then the fourth line, same as the first.